Hi. Hello, I'm Helen with So Kind of Wonderful, and today we are working again on our Sedona quilt. You can see the blocks in the background. Today we're actually going to work on this one right here, Polestar. It's a really fun block to make. You've already made parts of it before in your first block, Slide Rock. So let's get started and go ahead and make the Polestar block. Let's go ahead and get started on our next block in the Sedona pattern. Today we are working on Polestar. Polestar is block 9, and the fun thing about Polestar is even though it looks complex, like it's made up of these little points that form a star, the really fun thing about it is you've already made those points back in block 1, and this was called Slide Rock. And so this right here is the point we're making for our Polestar. So if you can remember that far ago when you were working on block 1, but I will show how to make that again. All right, my Polestar is going to have 2 fabrics in the points because I really want you to see that how it's made up of the 2 pieces that are mirrored images. So I'm going to keep the green on the right side, put the print on the left side, and in order to do that, because it's a mirror image, I need to make sure that I cut all the greens right side up and all of these right side down. So I'm going to stack those neatly, and then we're going to cut with our QCR mini ruler and rotary cutter. All right, here are my 2 stacks, and I'm following along with this, step 1 on this block. So for this one, I'm just looking at opposite diagonal points, placing my QCR mini curve cutout over those 2 points here. And then I'm just using my regular rotary cutter, and all of these, I have 4 stacked right side up. So this is my keep pile, this becomes A, this is discard. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. I've stacked them all up neatly, they are right sides down. Place the curve cutout over those 2 opposite diagonal points here, and go ahead and cut in your curve cutout slot. And for these, because I cut with them right side down, I flip them over, and now you can see how I have my 2 parts that I need, but they're both A, but this way they are a reflection of each other. All right, this is I have 4 pieces that are 4 by 4.5, and my fabric is a woven, so I can actually use either side. If you have a print, you need to separate these. So work with 2 first and have 2 of them. You want to position it so that they are, the 4.5 inch is your length here. And I'm just going to line it up on my cutting mat. And then look at your pattern. The pattern shows you that you measure and mark 3/4 of an inch. So I'm using the grid on my mat, and I'm just making a little mark at 3/4 here and 3/4 here. And then I'm going to use a straight edge. So I'm using my mini and putting it right on those 2 marks, and my rotary cutter, cut across. Now I'm just going to rotate these and stack them on top of each other so I can work with all of them at the same time. And then I'm going to rotate them this way, and you can see here we're going to look now at this long side here. So the long side of our shape, and we're positioning that long side on the 1.5 inch mark on our tool. So at the top here, if I go over 1.5, you can see I've positioned that long edge of fabric all the way down the 1.5 inch line on the QCR mini. Now I need to slide it, keep it on the 1.5 until this corner right here of my fabric is underneath the curve cutout here. And then look along, and you want the fabric to sit at 1.5 inches all the way down. And then this curve up here, it doesn't go clear to the corner. It's just shy of the corner. Go ahead and cut your curve cut out. This is your discard. And now you have this shape. And you're going to do the same thing with your other two pieces, but this time flip them over so that they're right side down. And then repeat and do the same thing. Okay, now I have my pieces cut. So let's set them up here. These two go together, and then this is my other side of my star points. And I have this stack, so this goes together. So when you're trying to figure out how to arrange these to get ready for our sewing, if you can see how they make a rectangle when you lay them out, because when we sew these together, that's what we'll have, is we'll have a sort of a rectangle when we get done. And then we'll square that up to a rectangle. So this is how they're set up. So let's get ready for sewing. We're now going to sew our curve, and I can sew all of these first. Here, we always start with concave on the bottom, convex on top. So here's my one piece I'm going to sew. Convex will sit on top. And I'm just going to flip this over, and the pattern will tell you to leave a 1/4 inch tail. So there's a little tail right here, and we always put concave on the bottom, so we'll sew this curve all the way down. All right, I'll walk you through this and just remind you how we make this block. First thing is I'm going to sew a couple anchor stitches. I'm not back stitching, it's just a couple stitches. Now hold one piece in each hand, and as it feeds, I'm going to move the bottom one over with just one finger and position the top one so that as they feed, they come together right here as it goes under the presser foot. And you can see how nicely that sews a curve. So go ahead and do that with the rest of this side, and then I'll show you how to sew the other side. We have sewn all of this side, so now it's time to sew this one. And here again, it makes our little rectangle shape. The question is, which of these is concave? This is concave, so this one stays on the bottom. So let's take one of these. So this stays on the bottom, this one will flip over. For this, we actually leave a 1/2 inch. And when I say a 1/2 inch, we're talking about this corner here, right here, down to where your fabric starts. So it's just that much is a 1/2 inch. And that's where it will start, and then you'll go ahead and sew the curve just like before. And again, a couple anchor stitches, and then hold one piece in each hand. And there is our nicely sewn curve. And you can see at the top here, I have about a 1/4 inch, about a 1/4 inch down. So it's just the opposite of what we did with our other side. Go ahead and sew all 4 of those. Here are my blocks sewn and pressed. I'll show you the back. I pressed towards my focus. That will make the focus look like it popped in, or it's sitting in front of your background. And now it is time to square up these blocks. We always square up our blocks, and in your pattern on page 18 and 19, it has 2 square ups. So what you're going to do next is figure out which square up are you using for which side. So take your stack of fabric, and you want to make it look like the picture. So this goes with this picture up here. And then my other stack, you can see how that is going to position the same way as my picture here. So I'm going to set it up exactly like this. All right, I have it set up the way it shows in the picture, and I'm going to make a 2 by 3.5 inch square or rectangle. So I'm using a gold Sharpie. We actually order these from Sharpie, the company. We like the gold one, it's reflective. I'm going to put a mark at the top of my ruler right on the 2. And let me see if I can get the light to reflect off it. Can you see that right there? I'm going to put that mark right on my curved seam. And I still have some of the curved seam above it. And then I look down here at 3.5 and I go over to the 1/4 inch mark and I have put a dot. So those are the 2 marks that I have marked. You can see there's my 3.5. On the 1/4 is where it sits, right on the curved seam. And then right on the top, you can see that I have the dot at the 2 right on the curved seam. So position those 2 marks, and then we're going to square up the right side. So we'll square up the side and the top. If you're left-handed, just rotate everything 90 degrees to the left and set it up the way the picture shows in the book with it rotated. Now, rotate 180. Now look at your 2-inch line and your 3.5 inch line. 2 inch and 3.5, and line up your fabric with those marks and then trim whatever's left. Now I noticed on this one, my fabric is pretty directional and it's fairly straight, but I actually have enough I can play with and get this so that it's more straight of grain. So let me show you that. So here's our block. Again, do the same thing. Put the 2 at the top and put the 1/4 inch mark right on the curved seam down here. Now when I'm putting those 2, I notice that my 2-inch line is getting off of my direction on the fabric. So I have just enough here I can play with. I just shifted it down as far as I could. And now I can trim the right and the top, rotate my block, put trimmed edges on the 2 and the 3.5 because we're making a 2 by 3.5, and then trim off whatever is left. And this one you'll see is much straighter to the grain of the printing. So go ahead and finish squaring up all of this side. I have these squared up, so let's go ahead and start on these. So look at your picture again in the book, and it shows that your block is set up this way. And this time we place our ruler on, and this time we're going to have you look at 2 different marks because it's a mirror image. So here we're going to look at the 1/4 inch sign, which is right in the corner there where that plus sign is. And then look down here at 3.5 and go over to the 2 and put a mark right on the 2-inch line. That is where your curved seam is going to sit. It's going to sit right on those 2 marks. And I'll show you. So here I have 2-inch mark at 3.5. The curve sits right on it. And then up here, right in that plus, where that plus is where your 1/4 inch seams will be on your next step. You want your curve to hit that mark. So let's go ahead and square up this one. Trim side, trim top, rotate block. This time put trimmed edges on 2 and 3.5. And then trim whatever is left. And then go ahead and do that for the rest of those. Here are my blocks all squared up. You can see how fun this block is going to be. So they're all laid out, and I like this arrangement where you have a dark and a light, and they stay on the same side around the star because it looked like a compass star. Or I like to say that. So now we have one more step in this block as we make it. We are going to add, this goes in the middle, and you can see how this is the slide rock pieces for the first block in the pattern, but we're going to change the look. And so here I have 8 1 1/4 inch squares, and I'm going to draw a diagonal line on the wrong side and position it right here in the corner and have a diagonal line drawn here, and I'm going to sew right on the diagonal line, and then we'll trim 1/4 inch on this side, and then we'll press it open. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, drawn line. You can do a couple things. You can actually use something to draw your line with. You could also, if your fabric will press, finger press, I like to just press it in half diagonally like this, and that gives me a little bit of a crease that I can see, and then position that on your right in the corner. Do it with both pieces, and you're going to sew right on the drawn line or the crease, and then we'll trim it. Here I have these sewn. I'm going to go ahead and trim, and I'm just positioning that with that 1/4 inch mark right on the sewn line, and then I will press this open. Do the same with this one. Let's go ahead and press that open, and you can decide if you're going to press the seam open or all to the side, your choice on this one. This fabric's really thin. I'm using Liberty of London, and it's very lightweight, so I'll probably just press to the side. All right, I have these pressed. Here's a fun fact about this quilt. I think this is actually a Jen Kingwell print, and we were in her shop last year, Jenny and I were, and I fell in love with these little Fat 8s, Liberty of London. I bought several. That's what I'm using. This will be the most expensive little table runner in the world, but I'm having a lot of fun using these prints. So now I actually pressed so that this little triangle looks like it's behind the points, and I'm going to sew this together and then press that seam open, and then repeat that with all 4 of your points here on your star. Here are my blocks all sewn together. They look fantastic. I'm super pleased with these fabric choices. And you can see on the back, I pressed the seams. You can see which direction I press the seams there. But after I sewed the 2 together, I pressed that seam open just to flatten out this part of it a little better. And these are my 3.5 inch squares. So go ahead and sew these together and press your seams, and then we'll have the pole star done. And here is our pole star all done. And I opted to press seams to the side. Do whatever works best for the fabric choices you're using. And, make as many as you need. This is a really fun block to make. So thanks for joining me today.